Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Bishop Vanessa Brown, and I am happy to be here discussing with you current events through a theological and justice-informed lens, as well as tremendous authors and filmmakers, so many wonderful conversations and discussions that we get to have here. And so I invite you all, first of all, I say good evening, and I invite you all to if you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, if you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, and any other social media platform page that we might be on, we want you to share. Make sure that you are sharing with all of your people to let them know about this conversation. You should be sharing with, I want you to share if you have friends that are pastors and bishops, people that have churches, congregations. They need to hear this conversation tonight. I promise you that it's going to bless somebody tonight. And so I am very happy to be here. And before we get into any further conversation, certainly I want to bring in Bishop Flunder, who is with us on tonight. She's the presiding prelate, for those of you that do not know, of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. And she is also the senior pastor of City of Refuge United Church of Christ. And so, Bishop Flunder, will you come and please greet our social media platforms tonight?
Well, good evening, social media platforms. My beloved, my friends, my colleagues, my siblings, my offspring, those of you who are without question some of the most incredible people in the world, chosen by God for such a time as this. It is a wonderful opportunity that we have tonight to talk about how, in so many ways, God is using this moment to change the trajectory of church and religion, how we worship, where we worship, even to redefine what does it mean to be church? What is God and what it is God's intention? What is God's heart? What is the motive? What is the plan? And wherever God leads, God feeds. So if we can embrace what it is that God is saying in this time, then we know that we are fruitful and will be fruitful in this time. And so to have someone who has spent as much time as our guest in working with people who are looking for locations and ways to have church and be church in community, and who has been inspired now by the Spirit to look again at what church as usual looks like when it becomes church unusual. So we encourage you, take notes, get ready, get ready, get ready. We are going to be blessed tonight with someone who's had the skill and know what it feels like, what it means, and loves God's people and is here to help. God bless you. I'm glad you're here tonight.
Thank you so much, Bishop Flunder, for that. And let's just shout out a few of our people. We've got Chuck Hunt here tonight from Monroe, Louisiana. Bishop, you don't know Chuck, and I don't either, but I can tell you something. Chuck Hunt is faithful. You hear me? He been with us for years on Beyond the Gatekeepers. So
we love you, Chuck.
We want to give it exactly. We have Sean Jenkins, who's also very faithful to us. Kimmy Floyd is here with us. Latondra Lewis from Memphis, Tennessee. Reginald Nichols from Stockton, California. Vanessa Pugh, I know she should have put Reverend Vanessa Pugh, but Vanessa Pugh is here. We say peace and blessings to you from New York. Bishop Diana Williams is here from Maryland. Lavinia Bean from Cape May, New Jersey. Lakeisha Williams from Macon, Georgia. Karen Coleman from Boston. Bishop Sonia Williams from Atlanta is here with us. Also very faithful to us. Minister David from New York City. Pastor Janice Steele from California. Welcome, Pastor Janice. Lawrence Tanner Richardson from Farmington Hills, Michigan. Daly James from Nashville, Tennessee. Chester Brooks is here. Chester Brooks said, I love you so much, Bishop Flunder. So I want to make sure I said that. Big Rainey's joint is on YouTube. God bless you. I'm so glad that you're here from West Seattle. And Chester is from Atlanta, Georgia. Ed Miner from Elmhurst, Illinois. Sherry Brown Jackson from New Orleans. Welcome, Sherry. Debbie Brown, Chicago, Maria Harris, Denver, Colorado, Diane Rodriguez from Portland, Oregon, welcome. And Bert Bowman from Dallas, Texas. I love this. This is so good. Darlene Connell from Ozone Park, Shakira Joy Bobbitt from New Jersey, Herbert Jones from Boston, Massachusetts, Reverend Davina Creer Jones, Bishop from United Church of Christ, Northern California, Nevada Conference, Hugh Patrick Hardeman, Tina Keene from Lexington, Kentucky, Dante Harmon from Atlanta, Georgia, and Herbert S. Jones. I said that Dante wants you to know also that he loves you.
Thank you, honey.
Awesome. Awesome. So we got all of those people here tonight. We asking everybody that's here already to make sure you share with somebody else and let them know. Also, Patricia Gill is watching. God bless you, Minister Patricia, Dr. Patricia Gill. God bless you. Amen. For being here tonight. And want to shout out before we go further and bring our guests on the Proctor Conference. Sammy DeWitt Proctor Conference. They are in full swing, have been since Sunday. I believe tomorrow is their last night. So many of TFAM folks are there as well. And so we want to shout them out for the great work that they are doing. Yes. And they are in Chicago, Illinois on this week. So I want to say that. So tonight, Bishop Flunder, and to our guests, we have an incredible guest, as you already said. We have been knowing him for a very long time. He is Reverend Dr. Patrick Duggan, the Executive Director of the United Church of Christ Church Building and Loan Fund. And he has participated in a collaborative effort in a book called Gone for Good, Negotiating the Coming Wave of Church Property Transition. I'm going to say that title again, Gone for Good, Negotiating the Coming Wave of Church Property Transition. Exclusively, he wrote chapter number 4, The Case for Remaining Missional. And so we're going to talk to you about that. Hello, Dr. Patrick. How are you?
How are you, Bishop Brown, Bishop Flunders? Good to see you both. I'm glad to be here tonight.
We are excited to have you on this platform tonight. I know this is going to be an incredible conversation. And I did let you know how we were going to proceed. Yes. I think it's important for our audience to know, first of all, what made the collective want to write this book.
So Mark Elsden, who's the editor, is a Presbyterian minister and a MBA. He has an MDiv MBA. We met on the first day of a 2-day convening by the Louisville Institute for folks who wanted to be authors of religious books. First day, we sat down randomly, I guess by the Spirit. It wasn't random. And from that day in 2018, might have been middle of 2017 or so, we've been connected. Mark has a project in Madison, Wisconsin called Pres House, which is a student housing initiative, basically a $17 million redevelopment that turned around that campus. And he has written on this subject, similar subject in a previous book, reached out to 15 folks in this space, people who are in some way working with churches and buildings, and convened us and said, I'd like for you each to write a chapter. And we went to a retreat in somewhere in Texas that's so far from everything. I mean, we drove, first time ever driving in a river. The last section of the trip was driving actually in a river. It was only a little bit of water, but we had to drive, and we talked about what we wanted to do, and then we wrote. And that Gone for Good is the product of that work. And I'm really proud, not just of my piece, which I'm very proud of, but all of the authors are really amazing people doing great work in this space from all different kind of perspectives. So that's how the book came about. If you're in this space, you're thinking about what's going on with church properties, and it's so intense and amazing that it's strange to me that everybody doesn't know. So I'm glad to have this opportunity and certainly be a part of the 16 folks who put this together.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. And so I know we've got more people coming in the room. So I want to say hello to Hope Rucker from Charlotte, and Miko Mo is also faithful, McDonough, Georgia. She's on YouTube watching. And I wanted to just say, as it relates to this work and talking about churches and buildings and everything, you know, I know that a lot of people, and I'll just talk about, you know, during the pandemic, right? People took a lot of hits in terms of the way that people was coming to church, because now people are not really coming. We have to be online, you know, according to the IRS. In order to be a church, you actually have to have, or, you know, go to a location, right? And so it was all of these things around, you know, could people really stay online? Right? But no, they can't. My understanding is that no, they cannot really stay online permanently and still be a church according to the IRS, right? And so we have people that have all of these buildings and they have all this space, but don't know what to do with it. Yes. And so I know that is what chapter number 4 is about. And so tell us about chapter 4.
So this thing we're in is like the pandemic was a fire, right? And we were the acorn. So, you know, that I'm told that an acorn explodes in the fire, and that's what makes it grow into the tree. That's what's happening in this space. Churches have been in decline. The American Christianity has been in decline since about the 1960s or 70s. This is not new. There's a lot of different reasons for it. I could talk all night about them, but a lot of it has to do with the change in our culture, the change in our values, all kind of change, the change in the makeup of the country. It's not just what we see as, you know, people don't like church anymore. It's more than that. The pandemic created the opportunity for a lot of people to be outside of those buildings. And for some, they began to realize how little and how underutilized those spaces were. That wasn't new. It's just a realization. For many churches, and now we all know, you know how, especially in the Black Christian tradition in the United States, pastors are known to lie about membership. How many members you? Oh, I got about 5,000, and you know nobody knows but you. But we know that we've been fabricating what's going on in church, or believing something that maybe isn't actually happening. But God gave us a joint, a kind of a collective sit down where we had to reflect. And what we thought was going to be probably because all we do is work with churches in their buildings, turned out to be one of the most productive years of the fund, because of folks calling saying, we've got to do something different. We can't keep doing the same thing in spaces. We have to figure it out. And so what I argue essentially in my chapter, The Case for Missional Remaining Mission, is that God isn't through with us. God is saying, y'all got to change up. You got to do something different. So, and it doesn't mean that we stop being church. It means that we have to rethink what church is in society and how we ought to show up. And most of all, because we associate so much with the place, what we do with that place we call the church is so associated with being church that we don't distinguish between the building and the congregation itself. Is one word. And so what I argue is we need to look at our properties think about what God is speaking to us. What's our why? And think about what God is showing us. What's the vision? What's going on in the community? What's the needs? And all that comes together to inform what should happen next. That's essentially what we're saying. The church should not become some churches might need to become a bar or a skating ring, I don't know, or a condo. Maybe they do, but most of them should continue to advance the gospel mission in some way. And that depends on where and who. It's not a cookie cutter. And it's no longer can we approach this as, I've heard folks say, I'm going to become a pastor and I'm going to lead a church. That's not enough. Where are you going to lead this congregation you're talking about?
That's right. Location.
Who are you going to lead? And where are you leading them to? You have to be specific. God doesn't give you a amorphous calling. God gives a very specific calling. And I think that's what happened in the pandemic. A lot of people just got scared and are still in the kind of a daze. But some have seen that this is the beginning of something new. And that's what we hope to cultivate in our work.
Excellent. Bishop Flunder?
Well, everything on me is saying amen, in so many ways. One of the things that both of you all know, and most of you all who are listening to us at Gatekeepers here and in some other places in which we've had opportunity to share, I think City of Refuge is a great model. And I say that because it was accidental that we got into what it is that we are doing and are known for. And the accidental piece of it was because my Pentecostal self, that part of it would have been just fine in that model that we are just reflecting on now in our past. But I'm a woman pastor. I'm an African-American woman pastor with a Pentecostal background who is same gender loving and informing people around things like HIV and AIDS at the time that we started. And so most of what was available during those seasons, Bishop Vanessa and Dr. Patrick G. Duggan, what most of what was available during that time period was not available to such as me and us, because we were on the anti-list. The greatest blessing to City of Refuge was to be on that list, because what it enabled us to do, and perhaps those of you who are listening to us, when we tried to mimic who looked to be successful and failed, it was one of the greatest gifts of God to make that failure, because in so many ways it prepared us for a time that we had no idea was going to come. We didn't know. People did not want to come to our churches when they knew people had HIV or felt that they had HIV. They didn't want to come to places where trans people were. They didn't want to come to people who had been incarcerated. They didn't want to come to people who didn't fit in what was considered an upright, and they didn't want to give money to that. Denominations back in the day did not want to put what they consider good money after bad. And that's the truth. But the great blessing of being other, and for those of you that hear what it is that this man of God is sharing with us tonight, embrace the ideas, because being other it's your otherness that is much needed in the time that, and that otherness can also be in so many ways to serve communities in something that seems not to be church. That's the heart. The pieces are that you learn in the valley how to help people, because you pull together when you're in the valley, and that really is the truth. I made a note to myself that something that Dr. Duggan was saying, that there are so many people who really don't know how to invite people and bless people if they don't fit the status quo of that church. They just walk right past them. But that changes dramatically when we begin to see church. Sometimes I say with windows and not walls. What if we could really see out into community? But even more importantly, if community could see in and see who we really are, and all with the wine and the bread and the robes and the choir and all that. If they could really see that we are something more than a private social club with God, on, way on the list, if they could see that. And I think that this time has enabled us to move from walls to windows, looking out, and people outside looking in. I can see that. That is the blessing of this particular time. So I won't go into Bishop Vanessa on the question that you asked, but that is where my heart. I don't think I would have made it, Dr. Duggan. I don't think I would have made it if I hadn't had so many things that were anti-church. When we couldn't get things from church people, God helped us to write grants. Hallelujah. And went on, and continued to serve. Much more to say, but that's so close to my heart. Thank you.
Yes.
I've got two questions for you, Dr. Patrick, from the audience.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that we can include them in this conversation. So one of the questions is, or maybe this is a statement, but I'm going to read this. It says, I wonder how much of the decline is also impacted by the fact that we came out of COVID into a time of huge inflation and cost of living. Many families might have quit coming because they had started using the money they gave to support the church, to feed their families, especially in predominantly white congregations where spiritual connection is emphasized less.
Yeah, I say in the immediate circumstances, yes, obviously the economy has impacted families. I don't know that I wouldn't make that direct link to church decline or the reason people aren't so quote unquote coming back, as some say, to church. I think it's a number of things. But you touch on something that's very important. Chapter 3 of the book, you should read that before you read 4, talks about the halo effect. Because we have this understanding that the church is broke, church is poor, and the halo effect is something that has been studied now for about 30 years. It was a phrase that was created by the Partners for Sacred Places. It's an organization really specializes in helping historic or churches that are considered not landmarks, but those kind of churches, really old churches, helping them to be restored. And they did a study, and it's been studied so many different ways that it's indisputable that churches have an economic impact on their communities, right? So you'll see stuff like, in 1998, they looked at churches in Fort Worth, Chicago, and Philadelphia, and figured out that each congregation in those cities, that handful they studied, brings about $1.7 million to its community every year in terms of the services and activities use of the church. Then they expanded it to 90 congregations in different places and found out that 90 congregations averaged about $3 1.7 million visits per year, right? In these 90 congregations, only 9% of those visits were for worship. So, in other words, that's about, if you just say, let's say 40 weeks a year, people coming to church, that would mean you would have 90 people going to church every week. All right. But then you have all of these hundreds of thousands doing other things that are not. Then they went to Canada and found out that the average congregation contributes about $4 million a year. Then in 2016, they did the Journal for Research on Religion, figured out that the economic value of churches, if you just count the revenue that they bring in a year, it's $378 billion annually in revenue that churches bring in. That's more than Apple and Microsoft combined. And then they had one in 2021 to look at rural churches. Everybody say rural churches are dead. There's nothing going on. It's true. Well, the average rural church generates about $735,000 a year to the economy. Okay, so what are we saying? All of these things was being studied during decline, because decline's been happening for 30, 40 years. But during decline, church is generating all of this economic value. It's not only the things that they buy, but it's, if you go to Bishop and say, Bishop, I need somebody to drive me or to do this. And Bishop says, well, go ask brother so-and-so. He can do that twice a week. Just give him a couple dollars. You add all of these kind of things up, all of the things that's going on, the church is generating tremendous value just the way it is. Just the way it is. So this is before about what our churches can do. This is just the way we've fallen into this way of doing church. It has huge value. We're not even talking about the spiritual transformation that happens when you hear a good message by Bishop Brown or Bishop Flunder. You know, we're talking about the economic value. So I don't think that even a pandemic shifted that much the economic impact of church in society. The issue is not people facing inflation or the economy going back. Church go up and down through all, Church Building Loan Fund has been through 2 pandemics, right? One in, what was it, 100 years ago, and the one a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. It's not the immediate, what people are dealing with in the economy that's the issue. It really is about those of us who are in the position of leadership in churches understanding that these assets that we have are not extra or sort of ancillary to ministry. They are the place of ministry. God didn't make a mistake and put us in the richest country in the world and said, forget about money. God put us here to minister using the money, the assets, the building. And I think that's what we have to see. Because the real reason people don't go to church is because church ain't changed in 500 years. Mm-hmm. Culturally, and I'm speaking generally, there are churches who get it, and there are some churches who do well doing things the old way. But for the most part, the culture of church has not adapted to the changes that have happened over decades and decades and decades. So you don't have anything to offer the new generations. They go, whoa, what are you talking about? It doesn't even relate. And I think that we have to face that and own that, and then figure out, well, then God, what should we be doing? And I think that takes some work too. So long answer to a short question.
Yeah, but that was good.
Yeah, that was really good. And I'm going to give Bishop Flunder also an opportunity to answer this particular one. Dr. Patrick, during the pandemic, this is a question. People learned that they could survive. I don't know if they could not. That's what okay. I'm going to read it as it is. But during the pandemic, people learned that they could survive with brick and mortar spaces, church, shopping, school. Do you believe that people prefer to continue in that model post-COVID? I think that they meant during the pandemic, people learned that they could survive without brick and mortar spaces.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about online ways to gather.
Exactly.
Yeah. And yes, we had to, first of all, we had to do what we had to do. And I think that technology definitely opened up the understanding of a whole lot of folks in terms of what is possible, right? I think that the thing that pulls us down when change happens, because we should be able to shift and change. We should be able to readjust and move into a situation like this, right? Because it's not the last one. The way we've treated the planet,
absolutely,
she intends to flip around a whole lot.
She's going to revolt again. Absolutely.
She's good and pissed. And so there's all sorts of things that we're going to have to work with. But I think that a lot of this malaise that comes with this sort of feeling that we're not going to be what it is that we really want to be because of COVID and because of that is because we have a poor definition of success. We have looked at some of the people that we think have really succeeded. And what we think of is, folks in the pews, the number of people that are there, how big a building did you get, or do you shake hands with the mayor on Saturday at the luncheon? What makes you a heavyweight in terms of what church is? And we have, I can think of countless folks that came along with me and folks that came along since, we've been involved and engaged in church, who are so horribly disappointed, not just about COVID, but about the big dream that they had, that they were going to be the wang dang doodle, it was going to be them. And they started out saying they're not going to be like him, they're not going to be like her, but they're going to be like us. We're going to do this. And then you get all the way into it, only to find out that that's not the thing to be looking for. I mean, many doesn't mean good.
That's right.
And I've said it before many times, Dr. Duggan, Pastor. I tell you, I have said to people that Hitler had a huge army.
Yeah.
Hello.
Right now, North Korea has they have a huge army marching in the wrong direction for the wrong reasons.
But we relegated, Bishop Flunder, the whole notion of church to numbers.
Absolutely. That's why we lie.
Right? So when we get in a space, like you said from the very beginning, how many people you got, Doc? How many people you got, Doc? How many people you got, Doc? And then people are, not really telling the truth. But it's the pressure that we put on each other about, and even that spirit of competition that comes in, and people are not really surviving. They're really not surviving. Like, people are closing their doors.
Yes.
That's not the ministry of Jesus. And I've said it many, many times. Jesus was cool. Like, I mean, it's just on this, and I don't mean to diminish, but the whole idea of meeting people in homes and houses, meeting people on a hillside, meeting people in places where people are. And the charismatic, the charisma of the belief system of the realm of God on earth that went in through the teaching of Paul, and we're going to have a communion service, and the text to the Corinthian church. And then the well-to-do people got there early and ate up all the food.
Right.
Y'all know what they did. They ate up all the food. They trying to have a service and have a communion like Jesus did, but the rich people, they didn't have to come late. They came early, ate up all the food.
The banquet. Yes.
Yes.
The banquet.
And there's something powerful at the end of that passage that basically says that if we love one another, we care for one another, wait. It's in the very last verse. We must learn to wait for one another.
Yes.
The wait part is the part that creates, in my thinking, the community, however large, however small, in whatever ways it's called to serve the community, in whatever ways it is called to be a blessing, in whatever ways it is called to connect, whether it's about people in the building or people from the building in the community. What's so important is learning to wait. COVID is trying to teach us that. Let me put it that way.
It tried to teach us that.
Wait.
It really did.
Come on now.
Yes.
You got to wait. It's not going to ever be exactly like it was. But there's a word from God. If we will wait and hear and then move, perhaps differently than we have before, but inclusive and radical in our inclusivity. Yeah.
That's powerful.
Thank you for that, Bishop and Dr. Patrick. So someone is asking, I wonder what the church could learn from our immigrant siblings and their ability to move, adapt, and learn survival skills in the midst of chaos. Also, it is similar to what happened to the Hebrew children in the desert when they had a tabernacle as opposed to a temple next to the king's palace.
You know, it's interesting. We new immigrant churches, a few of them. At one point, we had almost 40% of by amount, the loans to churches were to congregations. United Church of Christ has both United Church of Christ and outside of United Church of Christ, and in Arkansas, there are only 3 UCC churches. 2 of them are Marshallese, and there's one more Marshallese church that formed. I've learned so much interacting with these congregations, and they're not the same, but one of the let's just say between the Samoans and the Marshallese, different Pacific Islands, and different cultures. But what's they share is this idea of the church as the village. So you don't have to beg people to give. You know, it's time when there's a need in the Samoan congregation, the whole family, and then nobody's rich. There's a few, but people are working people. The whole family knows they got to come up with money, and they do what they have to do. If it's whatever the number is, we got to raise 20,000, 5,000, 100,000. We're going to do that, and here's how we're going to do it. And they come together and they raise the money. Now, how they raise it, I don't know. I've never been. I can't lie. I rarely have been to a strip club once in my life. But you know how
God loves
I've
the truth.
seen it on TV. What do you say, Bishop?
I said God loves the truth. I mean, go ahead. Go ahead.
But I've seen it on TV where they throw the money. Well, that's how the Samoans, when they're doing a fundraiser, a family will get up and they'll dance the traditional dance, and people will come up and throw the money. And in one service raised $20,000. So my point is the culture. We can learn something from that idea of the village. You know, what's the challenge for us? I think the biggest issue in the church with why it's empty, it's more culture than anything else. It's the idea that, and it's, part of it has to do with the fact that we're old. It's 2,000-year-old institution, so we're always reaching back to our origins and, you know, remembering the stories from the Bible. But the challenge is we're not first century. we think we just like Jesus. You know, we got to do the King James 16th said Jesus didn't speak English, but we think if we do what that book says exactly, we're faithful. But God, that doesn't make any sense. We're not 5,000 years ago. We're 2024, and so the culture of today is culture even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So we have to think about how are we adapting. And it doesn't mean that we have to become the culture, but we certainly have to understand what's going on in the culture so that we can be of service to people who are living that culture, and they're not upset about it. They don't feel like they're sinning because they're just living. And we have to be able, and that is such a big part of what we're doing. I don't even know if I answered the question, but that's where I'm led to talk. Yes.
You know, the adaptability piece is what I think people get hung up on, right? Because so many of our ways are concretized. Like, this is how we do it, and we're not going to do anything different. But when this pandemic hit, it gave us no choice but to do things different. It gave us no choice but to get online. Like, I was already online before the pandemic came. So it was an easy adjustment for us to make when they said whether we were going to have any more, when we said we were going to have any more services. So it's complicated for some people. So I guess I want to work through, how does a church remain missional, right? In the midst of the fact that they don't really have all the people that they had. How do they repurpose? How do they, Bishop Flunder and them, they've done it well. But like, how do people really do it?
So how does the church remain missional? The first thing is, that you are a church. You starting somewhere, right? Right. You have some resources, some sense of God, some sense of purpose, but it's to open up to the fact that not perhaps, God has placed you where you are for a reason. It's not incidental that you were in, I heard Bishop say the cut. It's not incidental. Or if you're in the best neighborhood, God placed you there for a reason. And so we have to, we tell people you have to renew your mission. And most will say, well, what are you talking about? I'm a pastor. My mission is to love the Lord, or however but that's sort of like, you're a supermarket. Your job is to sell food. But every supermarket has a different take on how to do that. God created so many churches because God knows there's so many different kinds of people and so many different ways of people doing things that we need variety. God needed variety. And so the thing that we have to do is connect our why with the place. Why am I here? And how do you know that? You can't do that sitting inside the building looking at the same people every week. You got to be you got to know your community. What's going on? What are the needs? What are the pain points? What are the aspirations? Who is in your community? What is it that they do? So you understand where God has placed you. You have to know who the people are that you're supposed to be serving. Your mission is somewhere in that mix. Now, how do you discern where do you start though, right? You start from your base, the gospel, right? Matthew 25 gives you an array of needs. It's not the exhaustive list. Jesus said, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was sick and I was in prison, you visited me. When I was a stranger, all of those, right? It's not the exhaustive list. It's an array. It basically says needs, poverty. When you take care of that, you bless the Lord. Okay, so the most successful projects we've had, one of them was started around feeding folks. James Etta Ferguson in Kentucky, she was feeding 1,000 people a week, and everything she did went from there. And there was a alcoholics recovery center not far from them. People would move out and come to the church, so she started doing AA. She just did. There was so much need, they had to have 50 programs to meet the need. But the church that vacated that spot, or that died in the church that she came in, they had decided to do what a lot of us do now. We're going to commute to church, we're going to worship, and then we're going to go home. And that's the last time we think about the community. So your why has to come from that space. Now you have a mission. Our mission is to take care of the people in this neighborhood, whatever that need is. That's our mission. But you also need a vision. Where are you going? Where is God? Where does God want you to be? And so what we do, we help churches, about 1,000 church leaders a year, figure that out. What's our mission and what's our vision? Somebody says, that's really simplistic. Yeah. But we say you have to do that before you start talking about building. Because what are you building for? Unless you're building it around the thing God wants you to do. That's why I love going to City of Refuge, because Bishop Flunder had a vision for, you call it a wagon wheel? I mean, what the church should be to meet the needs of the community. And that's what we're talking about. And once you figure that out, then you can just run with that. God is going to continue to. If you're in the space where God wants you to be, I'm talking to preachers. Y'all know blessings just come. Stuff just happens. You don't even expect it because you are in that space. And that's what we want churches to discover before they start talking about moving millions of dollars around to build something. Because you otherwise you're wasting your time and your money and if you don't do it the right way. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about mission and vision and staying missional. But one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
You might, and I'll go back to Louisville. James Etta, Pastor Jay wanted to renovate her church that needed about $10 million to make it usable. And we worked with her for a little while and said, you know what you really need to do is redevelop this corner and put some businesses and a restaurant, a bank, and a daycare, and a clinic, and all that, because you need jobs. These people need jobs, and they need all of these, the things that communities take for granted. It took her a minute to grasp that because it wasn't church. But in fact, it is church, because you're meeting you're in the poorest community in the city. They need employment. They need a place to go to the ATM. They need to be able to sit down and eat a sandwich. They need to go to the doctor. You know, there's things that people need that a church is designed to fit. And it may not be church as we understand it. It's not worship on Sunday only. It's some other things that we have to sort of do so that the needs can be met.
That's
and
right.
Then the levels of need. You can't tell somebody about Jesus if they starving. They want something to eat. You got to feed them, and then now tell me about the gospel. So that's sort of an important piece to note as well.
So Bishop Flunder, Dr. Duggan brought up a very good point, and I want you to talk about the wagon wheel. You always talk about it, and all the spokes,
mm-hmm.
right? And that's a great model.
I believe that what it is that we need to be the kingdom of God on earth is for everyone's skills, everyone's experiences. And I'll say this as an aside, the things that we learned in order to serve people were usually the big mistakes we made.
Mm-hmm.
We learn more from our mistakes than we do from our successes. And a lot of us carry that. We're carrying it around, and we can be a great blessing to people. If we don't think of churches as where we just all come to church and somebody else is doing the whole performance in front of us, and we're enjoying the performance and we're clapping our hands and we pay some money and we thank them, we go and eat, and then that's what we do. If we can see that the God that sustained us and helped us has embodied us with all sorts of skills, especially the things that we learned when we were in the trouble that we were in and the struggle that we were in, and that people need to be able to be blessed by that. What did we do? We pushed really, really hard to encourage leaders to go to school, to get training, to do what you need to get to really be able to serve people, because they need funds, they need housing, they need food, they need transportation, they need education, they need all of that.
They need all of that, Bishop Flunder. I just saw somebody the other day, and I'm gonna let you finish.
Yeah.
Like, if you go, he was talking to me, and I said, you got to create a social service ministry within your church.
Yes, you have to.
You need a social service ministry. Gather all your social workers, your MSWs, your social workers, your chaplains. All of those people kind of can work in conjunction together. But once you get the social workers together, they know the lay of the land. They know how it works in the world, particularly for LGBTQI people that are relocating to New York City, relocating to San Francisco, wherever the place is, Atlanta, wherever they're going. Somebody needs to be able to tell them how to get services.
Yes.
Right? These kids are being thrown out of their homes and all these things. How do you get services? How do you go down to social services? Where are the jobs? Where are everything that you need? How do you get health care? New York City, you can come from anywhere and get Medicaid.
That's right.
Medicaid, people can get mad all they want. Guess what? Medicaid pay for everything.
That's it. And we have to know those things. Those are the skills. Those are the skills that we have to get. And some of us don't see that as church, but that is church. If you're gonna travel and into what it is that God has called us to, stop worrying about how many B3 organs do you have, how many pews do you have, is that the high level carpet on the floor, you got to put a big steeple on the top. Make sure that what we are doing is focusing on the needs of the people. Jesus got them all together. He fed them. He got them all together on a hillside and told the disciples, I need you to work with me to feed the people. We don't have enough. Every time you reach out to feed, there will be more than enough. Every time. Started with 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread, got through, everybody ate. Because the disposition of the church outdoors on the hillside was to serve the people, not just to indoctrinate the people, but to serve the people. So I would venture to say it's important when we're moving toward this to be like the people that came out of Egypt, because there was a lot of pissed people because they were doing pretty good in Egypt. Not everybody was poor, broke, and hungry. And they didn't like that coming out of Egypt. You know what I'm saying? And they said, we want to go back to the soup
the meat and the garlic.
The garlic. And what is this? That's what manna is. It is interpreted. It is, what is this? The important thing is that they didn't, but the truth is they had to change their trajectory. And their trajectory was to take on the power of the folks that oppressed them. And God was shifting the paradigm that now you got to take on being powerful enough to serve those that are in need. This is a very different reality. We're not trying to be kings and queens on thrones in our churches. We are called by God. And that's why I want to say to those of you that are listening tonight, that's why you went through all that hell you went through. So you could be empowered. That's your training. You could be empowered to serve others. That the zenith of our success is not to where when we get to the point at which we can forget about it. Remember everything you went through.
Yes.
And do what you can to serve. And just one more thing. Be prepared for something new. That's what I hear these pastors speaking here with me and us together. Be prepared for God to do something unusual, not as usual, but something fresh and new. What we do not owe to our ancestors, what we do not owe to our ancestors is to make the same mistakes that they made. We do not owe them that. We do not owe them to have church as usual. We are called to church unusual.
Yes.
And what has to happen is we have to understand the manna for our time. What is the manna? What does it mean? What is this? That's the name of it. Manna. What is it? What is this? And that's what a whole lot of us are looking at right now in this time. What the heck? What is this? Well, you have the manna for this time. If you'll stop looking at the manna or the food that was in Egypt.
Yes.
Take what it is that God is giving you now. Everything that you've heard, be prepared for something new and get rid of the things that we really don't need.
That's it.
Let it go.
You know, that's so good, Bishop Flunder.
Costs too much money. Nobody's really being helped by it. It's completely useless.
Why are you keeping it?
It's just always been this way. And it's the way we did the pulpit 40 years ago. And it's the way we did the front of the church 30 years ago. This the way we not going to ever take it down. If you don't need it, let it go. And stop spending money trying to keep it.
Absolutely.
And move to the other things that you have heard tonight in the spirit. And somebody knows, because you've heard from God while this man of God has been sharing with us. You know what your what's next really is. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Go ahead on and walk on the water. That's all they had to do.
That's it.
Jesus said,
one of the things,
me walk on the water.
Walk on that water. Wow. One of the things, Dr. Duggan and Bishop Flunder, this past week, I was at the Children's Defense Fund.
Oh, yeah.
And when Starsky was talking, you know, and God bless him and the work that they do, he referred to Dr. Aubrey Hendricks' book, The Politics of Jesus. Yes. And one of the things that he says when he is bringing congregations and pastors and them to Haley Farm is that we have to treat the people's needs as holy. And thank you, Herbert Jones, for mentioning that, because it came up just a couple of days ago. And I think when we learn to do that, then we will know exactly what we need to do. But I think that we've got to get out of our own way as it relates to it, because, you know, everybody want to be, you know, whoever these people are, TD Jakes, and want to be, you know, Juanita Bynum and all of these different things. But that's what their call is. It doesn't make that your call. And you have to know what it is that God is calling you to, and who God is calling you to, and where God is calling you to.
And get another definition for great.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I was just thinking
just one more thing. Jesus did all his teaching in little houses, in little courtyards. He didn't have a cathedral. Get another definition for great. All right, I'm gonna stop.
No, I just wanted to say, you know, we didn't talk much about building, and I'm glad, because this is what we do to prepare for the building. You know, we you know, let's say, come out of wherever you came out of, you say, I'm gonna get me a church and I'm gonna have me some people. No, it's what is the calling? What's the place? Which people? These are the questions that we gotta deal with before we start thinking about moving around millions of dollars in assets, because that's what we're talking about. And I think it's so important that folks hear that yeah, we can, yeah, if you need help with a building, we can help you. That's true. But the most important work that we do with the fund is the training of those 1,000 people a year, where we're helping people think differently about church, so that the thing that God has placed something before us that we can't discern. And it's this new thing, this new model of church. And that's what God is not going to say, okay, here it is. God is going to put it somewhere before us to seek and to press. And that's what we're talking about. Figure out what is that specific call that I've been called to. And don't be ashamed of it. It's only for you. Yes. What you see, what God is showing you, and go deep into that. Everything else will work out. You'll figure out where the money's coming from, the building. But that's so important in this day, because it's so easy to be discouraged.
Yes.
Right now. It's so easy to say, oh, it can't be done. It costs too much. And all of that's true. But if you know where God is pulling you to, yes, all of a sudden things don't get, I don't know if it gets easier, but it feels like it's easier. It feels like you're moving in the right direction. And I think that's so important.
Oh, we do it with everything else. We do it with everything
absolutely.
else, Vanessa.
But I think we said, Bishop Flunder and Dr. Patrick, okay, so we didn't talk about building, but we should say something about building. And I think I think it's important, because again, these are we're giving you the preliminary stuff before you get to the space. But now you got people that have space. Yes. They have all of these congregations, got all this space, and nobody's in it. They only come on Sundays. They don't come. They come for Sundays for maybe 2 hours tops. An hour for service and an hour to fellowship, and then everybody goes home. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the church is empty. Nothing is going on.
Yes.
No other kind of community service, no other kind of programming is happening. What do you say to a church that is
in that space?
In that space, that design I just gave you.
So if you come, we're going to put you in training. We're going to help you figure out your why. We're going to help you with a strategic plan. If you know, listen, we also fix boilers and all that kind of. You're in a desperate kind of where you need some money, you can call us. We can help you figure that out. But if you're looking at, how do I reshape this ministry, and then what is the space I need to activate this vision that God has given me? That's how you have to think about it. Mm-hmm. And we'll help you with that. If that's just repurposing a building, we can help you with that. We'll help you think about it, help you assess what it costs, help you to raise some money. You probably will, if it's big enough, you have to borrow some money, but we'll help you figure that out. If you're doing like a lot of churches in California thinking about the affordable housing challenge and they want to build housing, you don't just go out there and say, go to Home Depot and get some wood and say, can you got to get help. If you're a preacher, you probably don't know much about building. So call us, call somebody.
We have an exception to that. We have an exception to that. So I don't even know why you said it like that. We have an exception right here with us, which is Bishop Flunder.
Well, that's the thing.
She can tell you everything about a building, architecture. I mean, pipes. She be going down there where they need to go do this. They need to move.
Stand corrected.
I said, "Oh Lord."
There are
she
some
knows about
gems.
building.
There are some gems out there who got it all. Most of us don't have that. Most of us are like me. We need help.
I might be. I might be offended.
So,
but she know everything about a building.
She know a lot. I tell you what. She know how to negotiate. I tell you that. She know how to get tenants.
Don't tell all.
Say that again. No, but somebody just said that. Bishop Flunder said, become a community partner. Nonprofits need spaces to work out of.
Yes, but you want to figure all that out. Yes.
Let me say something about Patrick Duggan, okay? Because he believed in us when we were in San Francisco, in a very difficult place, because we didn't have we weren't in a good money place in terms of where we were located and in terms of where our vision was. But he believed in us. And we found some funding, significant funding, to put an annex on the back of our church and to grow it. But still, San Francisco was not providing for us what it was that was really necessary, because they started fencing us in with parking. Yes. And our people didn't have anywhere to put their cars. And a lot of our people were driving. Literally, we didn't have. It took you could spend about $15 in tickets within 2 or 3 hours of being in the worship experience. It just wasn't. We didn't really know what to do, and we were wanting to make sure that everything and got a good loan. It's not that we didn't have a good loan. That wasn't it. It was just that the cost was too much. And there was a point at which we heard from God something that was incredible. And we looked at a building that was twice the square footage and some change as the building that we had originally. And somebody said, well, if you have some problems with this, what you going to do? And Spirit said, essentially, the larger it is in this case, if you are willing to use it, essentially, you can make it pay for itself. There's a whole lot I could say. I'm not going to go into all of it. The important thing is that it costs substantially less than the first building, which gave us some seed money. We took the seed money, we did some renovations, but we had everybody in there. We had the all sorts of unions and all sorts of meetings and all kinds of people. And as people said, well, where do y'all have church? Well, we don't know yet. We have it right over here. And then next week, we're going to have it over here. And eventually, we built out a place for sanctuary. But the majority of the building is not the sanctuary. The building began to pay for itself. There's something right there. It's this whole idea of having a building that is we think is sanctified, such as people cannot touch anything. They cannot park anywhere. You can't park there. You cannot this, you cannot that. It's like keeping the building sacrosanct and not using the building as something to be a blessing to community. It's there to serve. That's what the building exists for, is to serve. Well, then all kinds of folks are in there. We still have a union. We got a union. We that just ain't gonna leave. The building was built by the AFL-CIO, a building trades union. But we got one union that said that they're never leaving. And they have 2 spaces. And it's important for me to say, we got a clinic. We have all sorts of, we have a full gym, fully tricked out with all the stuff that you need to take care of your body. And I said, well, where's the holiness in it? But the important thing is, how can we make this help the community? Hundreds of people eat because of the incredible ministries that are the food service ministries at City of Refuge. I have to say that in many ways, the same Patrick Duggan that you all talking to today is the Patrick Duggan that talked to me and us when we were trying to know what to do with this sweet piece of property in San Francisco. Bottom line, it wasn't serving the people in the ways in which the building that we have now serves the people. Can I just say, buildings have to fit the call. Don't try to make your call fit.
There you go.
The building has to fit the call, and don't try to create something that the people can't touch. This is not your living room. Do you understand? This is not this. If it's the people's house, it's the people's building. Yes, we keep it up. Yes, we don't want people destroying it. And right now, because the homeless population that's around all of us, we're forever having to fix something. Forever having, just forever. But those are the same people that we are feeding, that we are helping to find housing, that we are caring for their mental and emotional needs and such. Same people, not just our congregation, but some of them have joined our congregation. And there is a clinic there. There's several things that I could talk to you about, but it began when we decided, basically, what do we need to do to serve? None of us knew that people were going to be sleeping in cars all around our church.
Mercy.
None of us knew. None of us knew that was going to happen. You couldn't have made me believe that to save my soul. But we fed them when they were driving in to get food. Now we're feeding them when all they can do is walk in, many of them, to get food. But we are there to do it. Thanks be to God for the wisdom of the work that was done through this man of God that is here. But listen,
Amen.
God, use the building. Don't be used by it. Use
that's good. That's so good. Sonia Williams says something. She said, don't pour $1 million into a Super Bowl commercial telling people about Jesus and use that money to do what Jesus did. That's what we're trying to say. Right? Like at the end of the day, whatever the seed money you have, make sure that you really think through what you're doing and really think through what the community needs and not what you want to have. Because what you want to have and what the community needs might be two different things. And that means that you're gonna have to plug in and find out what the community needs. Folks gonna have to tell you, you're gonna have to get out there where they are. You're gonna have to go to some of these other community-based organizations and find out as well, what are the services that you are giving? What is it that the community needs so that we can know what kind of church we're going to really be and how we're going to serve the community.
Clubs. This is not
private social club.
Role is not to be a private social club for Jesus and God and Buddha and everybody. It is not supposed to be that, where people don't know what they do in there. You pass by a building and you say, what you doing? What you doing in there? What's going on? That is not, we are holy on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Not just Sunday, but every day of the week. It is holy to feed people who are hungry. It is holy to help people find housing.
And so many people are talking about right now, Bishop, in the chat, how they've gotten food from City of Refuge and how the food from City of Refuge has helped them. So I think that that's important as well. Like, I think that we downplay the food services. And even if you may not have a building, we do something that's called pop-up food pantry. Yes. So like, we don't have a place to store, right? So what we do is like, we have to do it on the fly, on the spot. And we find out what the need is in the particular area, wherever we're going to go. And we're not just doing it in New York and New Jersey. We're doing it in Delaware. We're doing it in Arizona. Like, we got people that are there and say, oh, we like this idea of pop-up. And we've got areas where we can pop up too and do this same kind of work. So like, I don't have a building, but you got to reimagine what a food pantry would look like, what a food service would look like, right? So
and the
you have to really think about it and pray about it.
They're hungry. And they're hungry. They're not a bunch of people who are lazy.
Yes.
They can't be in so many ways because the cost of living does not permit it. They just can't. And then so they ought to move. How exactly do you do that?
Exactly.
Right? There's a sin in the ways that what is happening to people right now in the inner city. Absolutely. It's unbelievable to me. So it's an opportunity for the church to see the church. Listen to this man of God. Get this book.
Well, and the food itself is the holy. We had a ministry where at the church I used to serve that would go out and feed people who are day workers.
Yes.
And there came a debate with somebody who felt like, well, we need to hand out tracts. I was like, well, the food is holy.
Holy.
You don't have to proselytize.
Let the food be the tract. How about that?
You don't have to convert them.
Don't even wear T-shirts with the church name on it. You don't have to
just
proselytize.
yes,
Right.
And they don't have to say thank you. They don't have to be
Right.
nice. God's,
None of it.
when I was fed me, period. And I think we have to really understand the simplicity of that holy act of giving somebody something to eat when they're hungry. There's just nothing more loving. And
Yes.
I think if you want to generate a crowd in your empty building, give away some food.
That's
I tell you the
exactly
truth.
right.
It's the
With
truth.
no strings attached.
No strings attached.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
So powerful. Yes. Jesus said, when I was hungry, he said, well, how do we do this, Lord? If you've done it to the least of these, my little ones, you've done it to me. It's just so true. Oh, I can feel the presence of God in this moment because this is holy work. This is important.
Yes.
Holy work. And
so
God,
when we talk about going back, that's what we got to go back to. What not back to what we used to do, but what is the essence of our faith? What is it that we really and when you get to that, and whatever resonates in your heart as to that thing that's your thing, then do that. And as you do that, other things will happen. I mean, it's just so important to think in terms of, we're not going back to the old church. Hybrid is here to stay. Let's just live with it. We're going to be online and we're going to be in person. That's the reality. Stop fighting it. You got to do both. You're going to have church members you may never meet.
Right.
And that's okay.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's wonderful.
Right.
So we have to, just be good with, and I heard you say, not trying to be TD Jakes or this one or that. Just be good with what the blessing that God has made you, and to find a way to be a blessing to other people. That's where the ministry happens. That's the ministry. And then you build around that.
Oh, it's so true. Oh, that is so powerful.
Absolutely.
I want to thank all of you all who are listening. I certainly bless God for the teams and that serve City of Refuge, but everyone who is listening tonight, who is being the church in whatever ways in which you are being the church. Thank God for those who clothe and feed and house and love and serve. Thank you for those of you who care for people when they are in the process of dying. I have seen it happen, and it's such a powerful ministry. If we can do this, if we can really do this, I believe that the ways will be made for us to have everything that we need to continue to prioritize. There's a shift in the church. It's not high steepled in the way in which where everybody was trying to become that. There's something else happening. And hear this, find yourself engaged in it. And those of you who are engaged in it, don't let anyone diminish you and demean you and somehow suggest that you need to be a success. You are a success. If somebody is eating because of you, if they're sleeping because of you, if they are finding a way to God through you, God in you, then praise God for that. Keep doing what you're doing. That's good work. That's holy work. That's holy work. God bless you and thank you. You heard from someone who helped us.
Indeed.
He helped.
I want to thank you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So the name of the book, everybody, is Gone for Good, Negotiating the Coming Wave of Church Property Transition. We were certainly talking about chapter 4, the case for missional, remaining missional. But the bottom line is that, like Dr. Duggan said, you need to also just get the whole book because you got to read all the chapters. And I am just encouraging you to purchase the book tonight. I'm encouraging everybody to purchase the book. I am going to, Dr. Duggan, are we going to give away a book tonight?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So while you all are, I need you all to put down hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. all one word, so you can get the book. I haven't been announcing it tonight, but I want to make sure you do that. I want to give everybody an opportunity to win, so you need to go ahead on, all one word, hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, so that you can win the book tonight. And while you are doing that, I'm going to ask Dr. Duggan to give us a final word. What is it that you really want to say to the people as it relates to Gone for Good, negotiating the coming wave of church property transition?
Well, I think you read the book and you'll learn a lot about what's going on around the country in different settings with churches and their buildings. I think it's important for us to understand it and understand many of you who are listening are in buildings. You probably have problems with it, all kinds of thoughts, maybe not so good. But I think, I believe that God has put us where we are for a reason. And if you're listening tonight, perhaps God is trying to tell you to just take a look at that space and think about the possibilities if you were to do the ministry that's in your heart. And if that resonates with you, and if you need help, please reach out. You can get to me, Church Building and Loan Fund, cblfund.org. If you know how to reach Bishop Brown or Bishop Flunder, they know how to find me. We're at the national setting of the United Church of Christ, and we serve all churches. So you don't have to be a United Church of Christ congregation to get help from the Church Building and Loan Fund. And we'd be glad to help you. We have a wonderful opportunity for a special training program that we're rolling out this year. So if you're interested in figuring out what to do next for your church and you don't have a clue, you're perfect for us. You're a perfect candidate for to work with the Church Building and Loan Fund, and we'd be glad to help you think through and finance and plan your thing to do with church property. We have expertise in that area, so we'd be glad to help you. And I appreciate the opportunity to share, and always a blessing. Anytime I could be in the same space, even if it's virtual, with Bishop Flunder and Bishop Brown, it's a good day. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Very well. So Bishop Flunder, I want to give you some words as well to have to say, and making sure that everybody is hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers if you want to win that book.
Just I love moments like this because the church is in transition. And I have, I remember, Bishop Vanessa, when we had reel-to-reel tapes. I remember that. I remember I remember 8-track. I remember my first laptop would weigh about 20 pounds. These are things that I remember. But I have seen things change, that there's more power in my cell phone than it used to be in a room full of computers, because things change. We seem to be okay with things changing in the world, but it's hard for the church.
Sure.
It is hard for us. But I believe God is speaking. I want you to get the book, beloved. I think that we need to do church unusual. I think we need to think of communion sometimes as a sip of coffee and a cookie sitting with somebody in Starbucks. It looks like that, but it's real and it's authentic. I think that is what the Spirit of God is looking for in this time. Open your heart, open your mind, open the possibilities, and allow God to use you in such a time as this. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Bishop Flunder and Dr. Duggan. We appreciate you so very, very much. I want to go and let me just tell you that the link to purchase the book is in the chat. That's what you need to know. The link to purchase the book is in the chat. So go to all the chats and you'll see it. So you want to make sure that, everybody's not going to win a book tonight, right? Only one. So we want you to purchase it. This is something that, lay leaders, deacons, trustees, whatever your position is, pastors, all of you can get together and actually sit down and do a group and start reading these books so you can know and discern what your forward movement is going to be for your particular ministry. All right. I want to make sure that we can go right to our book giveaway. So you are putting hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. If you've not done it, we're going to give you 2 minutes to do it. And then Pastor Sue is going to spin this wheel and we're going to see who's going to get a chance to win the book. And we also want to invite you all to an announcement that Bishop Flunder is going to make as well.
God bless you. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I know that you've been helped and you've been blessed. I want to encourage you tonight to seed into the Gatekeepers. You can do it via Cash App at $TFAM Annual, TFAMANNUAL, or through PayPal, www.paypal.me/TFAM Justice. Help us continue to grow and expand our reach for the time that we live in. God is still speaking. God bless you.
Thank you so much. And Pastor Sue is going to spin for us. The winner tonight is Dr. Patricia Gill. Dr. Gill, do me a favor and go into the Beyond the Gatekeepers page in our direct message. Make sure you put your full name and address, and we will get that information to Dr. Duggan, and he will make sure that you get the book. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We had an incredible time. We pray that you have been blessed, and we look forward to seeing you next week. God bless you.